Okay, so let's maybe picture this. Your kid comes home, and it's more than just a bad day. They tell you someone's been teasing them, maybe messing with their stuff.
Yeah.
Like in this case, we heard about someone actually put trash in their backpack.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's tough.
And that first reaction, as a parent, you just want to fix it, like right now.
Absolutely. You think I need to call the teacher, maybe even the other kids' parents.
Exactly. That instinct to jump in and protect is so strong.
It really is. It's a completely natural to want to shield them from that kind of hurt.
Totally. But, and this is the tricky bit, isn't it? This is kind of what we want to dig into today. How do we actually help them deal with these things at school
Right.
without, like, taking away their chance to learn how to handle it themselves? It's a real balancing act.
It is, and it's something so many parents wrestle with. We're looking at a recent report today, and it pulls together insights from child development folks and different school approaches to bullying, trying to get a clearer picture.
Right. So, for you listening, our mission here is really to cut through some of that confusion. We want to find some practical, effective ways to support kids through bullying, but maybe move beyond just stepping in all the time
Mm-hmm.
and think more about building up their resilience.
And it's interesting, that first instinct you mentioned, wanting to call the school about the trash in the bag, super common. But if we take a step back, maybe look at it through an evolutionary psychology lens.
Evolutionary psychology. Okay, how does that fit in?
Well, Dr. Chun Kyu Nu from Leiden University makes this point. She says, evolutionarily speaking, aggression, even the subtle kinds, can actually be seen as like a survival strategy.
Survival strategy. Yeah.
And what's really surprising is the genetic link she mentions. Something like 60 to 70% of aggressive behavior might have genetic roots.
Wow, 60 to 70.
Yeah.
That's higher than I would have guessed.
So it's not just learned behavior then. Does that mean parents or schools can't do much? Oh, no, not at all. That's not the takeaway. Dr. New says something like, everyone carries some of this evolutionary trait, but the really crucial part, she stresses, isn't that it exists,
Right.
is how we react to these conflicts. That's where the guidance and shaping come in.
Okay. So our gut reaction as parents, while totally understandable, might not always be the most productive response long term.
Hmm.
Thinking about responses.
Mm-hmm.
What about those big school policies like zero tolerance? I remember that.
Yeah, that's a classic example, really. It came from a good place, obviously trying to make schools safer,
Right.
but ended up having some serious unintended negative effects.
How so? It didn't actually stop the bullying.
Well, the report suggests that in many cases, bullying actually increased under zero tolerance.
Increased. Wow.
Yeah. And worse, the really strict punishments meant kids got kicked out of school, missed learning, and it even contributed to this awful thing called the school-to-prison pipeline.
Oh, right. I've heard of that. So the policy backfired.
Pretty significantly.
Yeah.
Which is why by around 2014, many places started shifting away from it. The thinking started to change
Towards what?
towards moving away from just punishment and focusing more on actively building resilience, giving kids the coping skills they need,
Okay.
helping them develop the internal tools to navigate these situations. There's an American psychologist, Izzy Coleman, who was really ahead of the curve on this, talking about teaching children not to be victims.
Teaching them not to be victims. That sounds way more empowering. But the report mentions things are often different in Vietnam. More of that immediate parental rescue.
Yeah, it seems that way. The report points to a very common reaction there, as parents wanting to jump right in and solve the problem for their child as soon as they hear about any bullying. It comes back to that protective instinct.
Which we keep saying is understandable. But what are the roadblocks with that approach in, say, the Vietnamese school system?
Well, you've got teachers under a lot of pressure, big classes, lots of little conflicts happening all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's just really hard for them to gauge how serious every single incident is, while juggling everything else.
So you get this gap. Parents think the school isn't doing enough, maybe, and teachers are just swamped.
Exactly. That kind of disconnect can happen.
Okay, so parental instinct, system limitations.
Mhm.
It all points to needing a different strategy, right?
Mhm.
Which brings us back to Dr. Trung Kyu Nu and her focus on resilience and coping skills.
Precisely. She's developed this program aimed at building these skills, not just in kids, but in parents and teachers, too.
Oh, interesting. Parents and teachers as well.
Yeah. And the foundation is really interesting. It uses ideas from cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT,
Right, CBT.
and nonviolent communication, NVC.
Okay, CBT and NVC. How do those apply to, like, a kid getting teased, in simple terms?
Well, CBT basically helps kids see how their thoughts affect their feelings. It teaches them to sort of catch and challenge those really negative thoughts. And NVC gives them ways to talk about their own feelings and needs and understand others, but without, blaming or attacking.
Got it.
And what's cool is it's not just for the kids being bullied. It's also designed to help kids who are aggressive learn to manage their own behavior better.
That makes sense looking at it from both sides. Now, you mentioned something about a risk assessment table, like figuring out how bad things really are.
Exactly. It's like a practical tool based on work by Hammond from 2015. It helps parents and teachers look at the behavior and gauge the risk of physical harm. Low, medium, high.
Sort of like a traffic light system for bullying?
Kind of, yeah. So
Yeah.
red light high
Mm-hmm.
or very high risk, like actual physical danger.
Yeah.
That needs immediate adult intervention. Safety first.
Absolutely.
Yellow light, medium risk. Intervention might still be needed, but you have a bit more time to assess, figure out the best step.
Okay.
But the green light, the low risk stuff, the report really emphasizes these are actually golden opportunities.
Opportunities. For what?
Opportunities to help the child build those resilience muscles, those coping skills we've been talking about.
Yeah, okay. And Dr. New points out that most school bullying actually falls into this low-risk category.
That's a really key point she makes. And she warns that jumping in too quickly or inappropriately in these low-risk situations can actually backfire
How?
by, stopping the child from learning how to solve problems themselves. You take away that learning opportunity.
Right. So if it's low risk, instead of marching into the school, what should a parent do? Like, what can you actually ask your child?
The report gives some really good concrete examples. Instead of grilling them, maybe ask things like, okay, so what exactly did your friend do? Or, why do you think they might have done that?
Okay, trying to get them thinking.
Exactly. And then, crucially, what could you maybe do differently next time? See how that shifts it? It prompts them to analyze, to consider the other side, and to think about their own potential solutions.
Yeah, it puts the ball more in their court. It's about helping them become proactive, confident problem solvers.
That's the goal.
It's a big shift, though, from just fixing it for them to equipping them. And it sounds like this isn't just about single incidents, but about building broader life skills.
Totally. Dr. New talks about these 6 core competencies. Think of them as like essential skills for navigating school and honestly life in general.
6 core competencies. Okay, what are they? Let's hear them.
All right. First is emotional resilience. Basically recognizing your emotions and managing them before they take over.
Okay, managing emotions.
Second, problem solving. Being able to look at a situation, analyze it, and choose a good response.
Makes sense.
Third one's interesting. Humility and humor. Using humor, being lighthearted, can actually diffuse tension and make things less harmful.
Humor as a tool. I like that. Not always easy, but powerful.
Definitely. Fourth is managing reactions to minor conflicts. Knowing that not every little thing needs a huge reaction. Learning to adapt.
Right, picking your battles.
Fifth, realistic expectations. Kind of accepting that, the world isn't always perfectly fair and people are different, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm. A dose of reality.
And the last one, number 6, is resilience after adversity. Learning from when things go wrong, turning setbacks or hurt into growth.
Wow. Those are huge.
Yeah.
They really are life skills, far beyond just dealing with a bully.
Absolutely.
There was a story in the report, right, about a student who used humor.
Yeah, a quick anecdote about a secondary student who got teased a lot. But after learning about these skills, instead of getting instantly defensive, they learned to respond with a bit of humor.
And it worked.
Apparently, yeah, it changed the dynamic. It just shows how these aren't just theories. When kids practice this stuff in a supportive environment, it can become, as Dr. New calls it, a kind of trained reflex.
A trained reflex. I like that phrasing.
Yeah.
It implies it's something you build, not something you're just born with. Which leads to her final analogy, the spiritual vaccination.
Yes, such a powerful image, isn't it? Just like our bodies need vaccines to build resistance to disease.
Right.
She argues, kids need to build this inner strength, this resilience like spiritual antibodies to resist the negative effects of bullying, building up that internal defense system.
So the really big takeaway here seems to be it's not about trying to bubble wrap kids or eliminate every single conflict because, let's face it, that's impossible.
Probably, yeah.
It's more about giving them the internal toolkit, the resources to navigate those inevitable bumps in the road and maybe even grow stronger because of them.
Exactly. It's a shift from focusing only on fixing the external problem to strengthening the internal capacity to handle it.
It certainly gives you, the listener, a lot to chew on. When you think about these ideas, these competencies, how might you approach things differently, maybe with your own kids or even just in your own life?
hmm And it makes you wonder, doesn't it, on a bigger scale?
Yeah.
How can we all, parents, schools, the whole community, do a better job of fostering these spiritual antibodies in young people? What does it really take to build that kind of resilience generation-wide?